All right, you mad mongrels. In one of my first ever videos, when they first brought out this generation D-Max, I took it off-road, I took it with the family, there was a ram there, we did a whole bunch of tracks and trails and hills. Then I had the LSU Plus and I took that into central New South Wales and we went all the way up to Lightning Ridge and it was a fantastic little trip. But I reckon this past weekend has been its biggest test so far. And that's because we've been road tripping on the Easter long weekend with a sleep deprived infant. And look, I've been off-road, up hills in low range, but nothing really prepares you for that. Because when you're doing these trips, the off-road stuff doesn't matter. All the capability off-road, it does not matter. What it comes down to is ride comfort, noise, and whether or not the car drives your partner insane. On paper, the 2026 D-Max should be perfect. It's proven, it's reliable, and this year they've made some meaningful upgrades as well. But after road tripping this weekend with a baby, I'm not convinced that this is the ute that everybody should buy. Which I'm not gonna lie, isn't something I really expected to say because I've had some really great times with this thing and I really like it. But what I am absolutely certain of is you should hit subscribe. Before we get into why, let's talk about what's been updated, because the big news is that the 1.9 litre engine that was in the range is gone. It's been replaced by a 2.2 litre turbo diesel that gives you more power, more torque, better fuel economy, and more importantly, or maybe most importantly, 3.5 tonnes across the range towing capacity. The little old 1.9, the teeny tiny 1.9, that could only manage 3 tonnes, so it's a pretty decent upgrade. Now this X-Terrain still gets the 3 litre turbo, 140 kilowatts, 450 Newton meters, and it's still mated to that 6-speed automatic, which works fine. But they've also updated other things. There's a new 9-inch infotainment screen in here. Apparently it's got a bit of a faster processor. Graphics are still still leave a bit to be desired, but it is a faster processor. You also get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a welcome addition because it just makes getting set up so much easier. They've also added better materials throughout, and you still get the physical buttons along the dash here too to control your air conditioning and other things. So I really like that. Not everything's hidden in the screen. Now let's talk about why people really like this thing, and that is this 3 litre turbo diesel engine. Look, it's not fast, it's not exciting, it's not as punchy as some of the other options on the market, but it absolutely will outlive you and me. It's so truck-like. Isuzu make truck engines and they go for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Ks, and this thing is no different. And that's the appeal of the D-Max, because it just works. Isuzu say that they actually tested this for 2.2 million kilometers before launching it, and there's some stat like 5 laps around the earth or something like that. And then they back this thing also with a 6-year 150 kilometer warranty too, so you have that as a bit of peace of mind as well. And when you look at the price, this X-Terrain, 70,685 drive away, that's 7 grand less than a Ranger Wild Track. And 7 grand, that can go towards a lot of things. Now the top of the line Triton, the GSR, that's playing in the same ballpark, so Isuzu's not playing alone in this space, but let's break down what it's actually competing with. So the Ford Ranger Wild Track, that starts at 77 grand. It's a better riding ute, it's more refined, and it does get a bit more tech. You get that really big vertical touchscreen in there. There's a bit more tech in that. The 2 litre bi-turbo is punchy. You get that 10-speed automatic, so it's a pretty refined and punchy little package. But Ford does charge a premium for all of that. Now the Triton GSR, now that's a bit more of a wild card. It's a similar price, they put it on a new platform. It's actually quite improved this time around. But what I would say is Mitsubishi's reliability in this segment isn't as bulletproof as Isuzu's. If you're thinking about longevity and having this car for 10, 15 years, my money's probably on the Isuzu. And then there's the VW Amarok, which is a genuinely brilliant ute. V6, car-like driving dynamics, all the tech, but it does start at 90 odd grand. So you are paying quite a premium to have that. So where does that leave the D-Max? Well, if you're putting aside things like the Cannon, the GWM Cannon, which is just packed with tech, and you just look at like the traditional utes in the segment, I would say this is the best value proposition. If you're looking spec per dollar, it's pretty hard to beat. Now let's talk about the suspension, because that's where things get a bit interesting. Up front, there's a double wishbone setup. In the rear, there's a leaf spring setup. So look, that's exactly what you want if you're towing or you're absolutely flogging it down a corrugated road. It's proven, it's reliable. You know, you get your towing capacity, it handles a load. You get your 800mm wading depth, so if you're out bush or you're going adventuring, creek crossings, all those sorts of things, not going to be a problem. But when you've got nothing in the back of this thing except for a baby, that leaf spring set up in the back, it really knows you're there. And when the baby's sleeping, you feel everything like deeply. To be fair, I don't know if it's just our baby sleeps a lot, so it didn't actually wake her up too much. It did on occasion, but not too much. But yeah, you really do feel absolutely everything come through when it's unladen. And then you start driving it, you know, around town, the suburbs, and it's not all bad. The steering on this thing is really light, which makes it really easy to maneuver. It's easy to place, it's easy to park. And then when you're on long drives, your arms don't get cooked either. So look, for a big ute, it's not all that bad, and it doesn't feel like you're driving around a bus, like this massive big thing. But as you drive it around, there are some cracks that start to appear. So this Isuzu gets the IDAS safety system in it, which is, you know, lane keep, blind spot monitoring, all that good stuff. It's got all the tech in it. But I found over the long weekend, there was quite heavy rain on the way up for our road trip, and the lane keeping just turned off. And that's not the first time I've had that. I had that, I think, in the LSU Plus as well. When I was going to Lightning Ridge, we hit some rain and it just turned off completely, which is not ideal when you're driving around your family. And then there's road noise. So around town at lower speeds, it's fine in here. But when you get out of the motorway, when you're doing 100, 110, it does get quite noisy in here. And in fact, at one point on our trip up the coast over the Easter long weekend, I was talking to my wife and she wasn't replying, and that's because she literally could not hear me. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, that's probably a feature, but my wife watches these, so I'm not going to go there. But yeah, at speed, it's not great. Something like the Ranger, something like the Tasman or the Amarok, it's probably going to be a little bit nicer at speed in the cabin, you know, when you're just talking with the family, everything like that. Now, to be fair to it, the Isuzu isn't trying to be the most refined ute, and it's not really claiming to be either. It's about reliability, it's about simplicity, you know, it's about getting the job done every single time. And here's the thing, the D-Max is one of Australia's best-selling utes time and time again, and that's probably for a reason. But that reason, it's not clever marketing or anything like that. It's because the people that buy them, they keep buying them because they're so reliable and they're just so happy with them. That's the kind of loyalty that you can't manufacture with, you know, celebrity endorsements and all those sorts of things. There's just loyal customers coming back because the car does exactly what you want it to do, and it does it every time. So, should you buy a D-Max? Well, if you want the best riding ute, no, you should probably buy a Ford Ranger. If you want the quietest ute, you probably want to look at an Amarok if you can afford it. If you want the most tech, no, look elsewhere. But if you want something proven, something that'll tow 3.5 tons, something that'll wade through 800ml of water, and then, you know, it'll still be starting in 10, 15 years time, you know, this thing will probably outlast me. Maybe not saying much, but probably outlast me. So, you know, it does make a lot of sense. In terms of the updates that they've done to this, it hasn't been reinvented, but they've made some really meaningful changes. And if you are looking at a ute, I'd definitely pop into a dealership and have a look at this.